They signed a waiver that mentioned the danger of death 3 times.
We're obviously talking about the folks aboard the missing submersible, and Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick joins us with what liability OceanGate could now face. Good morning to you, Wendy.
Good morning. It's such a heartbreaking story to start us off, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, we're talking about these waivers. So clearly the passengers who were on board understood the risk. And there's definitely an emphasis on potentially there could be death involved if there was an accident.
Yeah, that's true. And is it an accident or is it some kind of reckless, negligent, or intentional conduct? That's definitely going to be one of the very first things that any lawyer representing one of the family members that wanted to sue for wrongful death would have to face. They would have to say, look, it's an ultra hazardous activity. We're not talking about a boat capsizing at SeaWorld. This is a submersible that goes to the bottom of the ocean. And not only that, it's not a company that's been doing this for 50, 60 years. It's a fairly new excursion in terms of the way it's carried off. And it hasn't been without incident even since it's been in business. Remember, there was a 2018 lawsuit against this company by a former employee alleging design deficiencies, basically, and flaws. So whether or not there's legal liability is, as you mentioned, definitely going to matter what that waiver said. But it's also going to depend on if there's a black box or something similar recovered, what that reveals, the story that reveals if, God forbid, the passengers cannot.
You mentioned all that and a possible black box, if they can find it, and if so, how do you even retrieve something like that? Why are cases like this, which is obviously rare, so challenging perhaps to sue if and when something goes wrong?
Because of what Chris led off with, the waiver. There are lots of ways in which different jurisdictions will interpret waivers differently. Clearly, words matter. That is first and foremost the most important part of this. Secondly, different jurisdictions allow for recovery under different circumstances, whether it's negligence, intentional misconduct, recklessness. These are some of the things. Now, this is a Washington-based company, so that's the laws that many people are looking at.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to sue after you've signed a release that emphasizes multiple times the risk of death. And price matters too. $250,000 to assume this kind of risk, to take on no doubt a once-in-a-lifetime excursion, that plays into the equation as well.
And obviously, I feel like the questions are being raised now for any legal trouble for any high-risk businesses. They're probably taking a look at this now too, because this is going to determine how, I'm assuming, how they do business.
Chris, that's such a great point, because there are lots of high-risk activities, whether you're climbing to the top of Mount Everest or whether you're parasailing, zip lining, scuba diving. There are waivers everywhere. Now, the sad part is that not everyone reads those waivers. I'm willing to bet somebody going out into space or to the bottom of the ocean is actually going to take the time to read the waiver. But maybe that's assuming too much. And if something mentions death multiple times, well, that tells you that's intentionally designed to make sure that the passenger doesn't miss it. And that's probably also gone over verbally, maybe more than once. So all of those factors are going to be investigated if, in fact, it ends up coming to that. There's nothing that says that a wrongful death action can't be filed. And sadly, sometimes they take years to litigate. Question now, I think lawyers are looking at is, would that ultimately be successful?
And it's lawyers who write those waivers, and every word matters, every detail matters, and yet it seems we all sign these waivers. When you go on vacation, you do a little, even writing a banana boat, you write a waiver. You do the parasail, you sign a waiver. And yet when something goes wrong, there's usually a lawsuit no matter what the waiver was, so they have to literally nitpick and go through those. Is that what we can expect here? They're just going to go through fine print, just every little word in there?
Well, you'll go through the waiver, but Raul, you'll also look at the history of the company and whether there's been notice. In other words, sometimes you say, well, this company should have been on notice that there was a design flaw, that there have been other accidents, that there were employees that weren't double checking equipment. We talk about this a lot when it comes to planes going down. They would also talk about it in a submersible that is so small. Remember, it's about the size of a minivan. Those passengers are bolted in from the outside. There are just so many different things that make this excursion unique. So regardless of the waiver, they're also going to look at whether or not any of those passengers could legally waive that type of ultra hazardous risk. Not all waivers are enforceable. So that's what I'll leave you with, sort of in terms of words matter, but circumstances matter perhaps even more.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, Wendy, the lawsuit that happened in 2018, because there was a whistleblower complaint to OSHA about the design flaws of the vessel from a former employee who was consequently fired. I guess because, right, correct?
That's right. And then what you'll look at, Chris, is was there any action taken, whether or not the employee was fired, in response to what they reported? Now, it's not completely analogous circumstances, but like any other sport, you want to look and see how safety has been improved since complaints were made. Sometimes, regardless of the ultimate merits of the complaints, it is never a bad idea to take another look at all the things that could go wrong with an excursion this dangerous.
All right, Wendy, you said it earlier, ultra hazardous, and that's what this was, and knowing the risk, and it's just heartbreaking all around. Wendy Patrick, we thank you for the insight on this.
Thank you.